Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boy Jack here, joined by Sonny from Sonny Talk Spurs, and we're going to be showing some needed praise for our man, Big Vic, the Vicario. I feel like he's been needing some love and maybe some more attention from us Spurs fans, and especially after this North London derby, there was an article released by Football London sort of detailing some of the really good leadership qualities that I think the guy does have, and people might already know this, but I kind of have been, asking for more of that modern goalkeeper for some time now. And I think Big Vic is absolutely showing that. And if you do agree, everybody, get your comments in down below. Let us know why you think this has been a great signing for Spurs. Smash that like button for us. And also head on over to Sonny Talk Spurs channel, please. But we're going to kind of get into, like I said, that Football London article and just sort of, begin where I sort of got this inspiration from, about the Big Vic. And apparently it sort of started with, with the first 15 minutes of the game when, if you recall that mistake that Destiny Udogie made, Sonny, where he made that sort of bad back pass after being sort of shaken up by that yellow card, from Bukayo Saka. He underhit a back pass into his own box, which allowed Nketiah to steal in and fire a shot from close range, which Vicario saved very well with his leg. Many goalkeepers, as Football London have said, might have blasted that 21-year-old Italian for his poor pass, but instead, Vicario simply turned to Udogie with a big thumbs up in the air and then applauded him as if to say, "Don't worry, I've got you. Keep passing the ball like we've been told to." I kind of want to stop there and kind of feel like we're already kind of seeing that he's slightly different from the Pickfords of the world, Sonny. He's not going to be just screaming down, kind of like an Oliver Kahn would or something like that. He's doing almost like the cool guy approach. Like, even if he's made to sweat, even if he's caught a little off guard, he's just doing kind of like a wink, a thumbs up. And that's partially because maybe, a young guy, you don't want to rattle somebody, like Udogie, who's already kind of under the pressure of Bukayo Saka. But he also is just maybe showing that he can be kind of a leader in a different way, right? He doesn't need to just do the Pickford thing every single time and sort of scream at his players, which I think is really nice to see. And then just quickly as well, following that Romero own goal incident, Vicario picked himself off the floor after having dived, obviously, the opposite destination of where the ball actually went. He went up to his Argentine defender from behind and put his hands up to him to slap palms with Romero, which the center back turned and did with him, and then the goalkeeper kept walking with Romero and put his arm around the vice captain's shoulders before whispering something into his ear. It was a touch of motivation from the man behind the sticks after an unfortunate moment for the Tottenham defender that could have affected him from that point on. And when you think about it, Romero, apart from the penalty in that, really didn't have that many sketchy moments that I could actually really recall. I think he had a pretty fair game, despite how much Arsenal fans seemed really eager to tear into him. But I don't know, just kind of these moments quickly from Vicario for you, Sonny. Do you feel like this is something different, something maybe that's atypical, the average keeper? He's not screaming at his players, he's putting his arm around them, he's telling them, keep playing the Big Ange way. What do you make of kind of, his behavior and his sort of, I guess, character in the North London derby?
I mean, when we talk about goalkeepers from the past, modern keepers, there is sort of this stereotype that you've got to be a bit of a madman in the net or a mad woman, depending on the male or female football. But I feel like you do. I feel like you have to, because you're literally, your role in the team is to be like diving around, jumping around. It all starts with you, the stereotypical as well of, if you make a mistake, it usually results in a goal if you're a goalkeeper as well, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, he still has those moments where I've seen him pulling funny faces and looking at referees, and I think there was a few in pre-season as well. So he has got that sort of side to him, but it seems like he hasn't got that sort of head loss, I'd say. He quite calm between the sticks. I can't think of many other goalkeepers, maybe your Allisons and Edisons at your top tier, who are that calm between the sticks in the net. So I think it's really good. And yeah, from a leadership point of view, I find that quite interesting as well, because when we think of Spurs leaders, considering that our goalkeeper of 10 or so more years, Hugo Lloris, has been our captain, I feel like, controversially, I'm going to say this, I feel like Vicario has shown more in a leadership and
That we were wanting from Hugo. Yeah.
exactly, because I feel like, the problem is from the outside looking in, Lloris seems like quite a timid character. He's not, doesn't seem vocal, and I am one of those people as well who doesn't think a captain should be a goalkeeper. I know throughout the years we've had Neuer, we've had Casillas at Real Madrid and Bayern respectively, and they were, don't get me wrong, I think they were perfect fits for the club, but I don't think Lloris was perfect to be Spurs captain. I just don't think he showed that leadership quality. I'm not discrediting what he has done for the football club either. I think he's been a great servant. He's had some really good moments. But as you say there, I think, and we were saying before, Lloris's time
Yeah.
had to come to an end. I'm not sure if it was worth him signing that extension contract a few years ago, but I like moving back to Vicario. I just think he's been a breath of fresh air. I'm eating my own words because, as I said as well before, I thought he might have been a flop. I thought we should have gone for David Raya.
Yeah.
And I said it was a mistake. And I'm eating my own words because I've been proven wrong thus far. Because even neutral fans, I've got many friends who straight away were like, in our WhatsApp group, going, this Vicario always quite flamboyant with his saves. I'm not sure about his shot stopping. People were looking at his even like really. Exactly, the highlight package was like, oh, he's parrying a lot, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that. But we saw the two saves he made in the North London derby, which kept us in it, which was the Gabby Jesus one and, as you said, the Nketiah shot. And he's done well there. If anything, he's parried it away from danger. And he's got a good relationship, considering this is a new back four, back five, whatever you want to call it, with a goalkeeper. I feel like they've all got a very good relationship thus far. Maybe it's good that him and Adogi are both Italian. That quite helps as well. But they just seem to be linking up really well. And even like, you see, like, I'll do a little show, little triangles between Romero, Mickey van der Ven and him. There always is an option. And even whoever drops in, like your Bassoum or Maddison or whoever, it always seems to be quite well. Obviously, there was one instance where he fed Maddison in and Maddison got caught and it could have been 2-0 and a different story. But that's not really his fault. When we looked at some instances last season, I'm thinking De Gea playing it to Eriksen against Brentford, which we all can recall quite well. Yeah. That was a bit more of De Gea's fault. But I just think with Vicario thus far, he has dictated the play from deep. Yeah. He's knowing when to go long. He's knowing when to go short. Everyone's always giving him an option. I think that's what I felt sorry for with Hugo as well. I feel like sometimes when he was playing out from the back, there was never an option. Yeah, and he was never... and he was never confident to play out from the back. So, all in all, that's what I think about Vicario. As I say, eating my own words so far, and I just like what I've seen. So, pressure's on against Liverpool, so we'll see what happens there.
I like the fact that you mentioned, though, like on his leadership abilities, that he's actually been talking more than actually Lloris ever has. And I've actually heard that from a lot of fans in the stadium, that they've been hearing Vicario's voice more than they really ever did hear Lloris's voice, which I do find actually interesting. But also, like I said, it's not like a Pickford, Oliver Kahn type screaming, type of voice. Like, he's telling them where to pass it. He's telling them, who to see next, what, option is there after that. And I think, again, that's more in line with kind of the modern goalkeeper, like the Allisons, like the Edersons. They're sort of kind of pointing, telling guys, oh, play here, give it back, I'm here. It's just more of that kind of, less of that just sort of screaming and yelling. It's actually more kind of just telling players where to play it, because you have that different sort of perspective as a keeper often, right? You can see sort of the whole field, what's in front of you, but also kind of in an intimidating way. You kind of see the whole field and what's in front of you. And I think he's handled all that very well. And he seems to do a good job finding this balance of sort of encouraging his teammates, but also still commanding that respect that's sort of needed as a keeper. And when I do look at it, I feel like he's being that good voice of Postecoglou's style. He even said, like, after the game, he said, like, the most important thing is that we showed who we are in this Premier League. And I sort of think, like, that's, again, a line of, he's clearly taking on this style and this sort of manner of how we're playing really to heart here. And the fact that with Udogie, who's playing that back pass to him, he's giving him the thumbs up instead of telling him, not to do it ever again, sort of thing, right? It's all just in line of him being, I think, a good voice for Postecoglou, and he's been very good with his feet this season, as you mentioned. Here are a few Yank stats for you, everybody. He's attempted the 5th most passes of any keeper in the league, and he's actually attempted the 4th fewest launched passes. So that actually shows, I think, he's trying to play out from the back. He's not just, getting it cleared, clearing his lines when he's put under a bit of pressure. He is trying to make it work. He's trying to play these passes on the floor to sort of make the style of play at least the best that it can, to really function. And compared maybe to a David Raya, actually, Sonny, I'll go back to you here. David Raya, to me, was always very good at getting it launched. Not as good at sort of the, how would you put it, like the really playing out from the back, like actually playing some, 6 yard, 7 yard sort of short type of play. And even Arsenal fans just recently, said that his distribution was pretty terrible that game in that sort of metric. Like, he's just so used to just getting it launched up to Ivan Toney, and that he's very good at that. And those drop kicks he's really good at too. But maybe not as much what we actually are looking for, someone who can actually play these sort of dinks, these kind of, first time, type of passes.
Yeah, I mean, from that game as well, we were putting David Raya under a lot of pressure, I'd say, really pressing him in deep. Whereas I think, and I'll be honest, watching the North London derby, I'm still getting used to us playing out for the back, because there are moments where my heart was in my mouth and I was like, oh my, what is going on? And then, like, because I'm just used to how we played so slow with, like, the likes of Lloris and Dyer. But I just think, the way Vicario's distribution is mixed, and he knows when to play where and when. And also, what I like from him as well is he seems quite calm under pressure. Like, we saw with the Nketiah tackle, which obviously was controversial in itself, but like that, he sort of did invite a bit of pressure and knew when to play it out and stuff like that. So I did quite enjoy that. But yeah, I don't know. Raya as well is good at collecting. I think Vicario shown that as well, if we're comparing the two. Obviously, the problem with Arsenal is they have this whole thing at the moment where they're clearly, Ramsdale, Raya, who's the better keeper. And I'd rather have Vicario and Forster in this situation because, you clearly know who your starter is. You clearly know who your second choice is. Fraser Forster isn't sitting there thinking, oh, what can I do? And we saw, even in the Fulham game in the Cup, we weren't able to play it out because Forster isn't as good at playing out from the back. That's probably what we'll have to get. We'll have to bring in an even younger keeper who knows he's second choice, but who is willing to play that style as well because, Vicario is sort of setting the standard of how a keeper needs to play out now at Tottenham Hotspur.
No, it definitely has been. And I feel like we've needed a keeper for a long time who can adapt to this sort of modern game. Nowadays, I feel like you get pressed all the way to the keeper, kind of whether you like it or not. You kind of get pressed for the whole 90 minutes like we have been. Another thing, too, is it feels like big teams, they just don't really go long anymore. If they are being pressed, they are just going to try to play out through it because it seems to go both ways, where it's like if you press really high, you have a very good chance of forcing a mistake high up the pitch. Therefore, you're kind of closer to goal and, maybe an easier chance to score. But also maybe the other way around, where if you have all these guys in your side of the half and you end up kind of playing through them, you end up kind of fastening a pretty good chance usually, with that, so many defenders kind of being put forward and everything. So it just seems to be that most modern teams, or at least kind of the big six sort of teams, most of them I can't really say just get it launched up to somebody, or, they do try to sort of play through it. And it felt like we couldn't really do that in the past with Lloris. We just kind of did just need to get it launched up to Kane or get it launched up to somebody else. And also, too, now, if we were going to play at high line, it felt like under a Conte or under a Mourinho, again, I don't really know if that was ever really possible because Hugo used to be a really good sweeper keeper, but towards the end of his career, kind of lost that ability to really do anything outside of his penalty area. And so we also, again, had to sort of sit back, play deeper in this kind of more less modern type of style. And I'm actually happy that now we have a guy like Vicario who can play, outside of his penalty area, who can be that sweeper keeper. And again, another sort of yank stat for you guys, he is actually, in fact, tied for the second most actions outside of his penalty area this season. Big Vic, he's doing it everything this year. And also maybe just another point that we're probably missing here, Sonny, I'll go to you on this one. It's kind of obvious. Compared to maybe most modern keepers that are like the Onanas, Sanchez's, the Steels of the world, he's actually making saves.
That's the thing. I think we actually sometimes forget that a goalkeeper is still there to keep the ball out the net instead of just, having to like spray balls. But yeah, I mean, a couple of years back when we were talking about available keepers for a cheaper price, we were looking at Sanchez and Raya and players like that. But, he's shown at the end of the day, stereotypically, he's an Italian goalkeeper coming from the Italian league. And what is Italy known for? Mean defenses and,
good keeper.
good keepers, clean sheets. So, Buffon has touted him as like one of the next best keepers to watch. And he seems to be pretty spot on at the moment. But yeah, making important saves at important moments. I wouldn't even say... I like looking at the goals he's conceded so far this season, I wouldn't really blame him for any of them.
He's
because
made more crack saves than even really has made like any sort of errors. And you even look like Onana, right? Like Onana, we've had more debates thus far, it feels like, about should he have saved that? Like, is this guy maybe just been brought in just to play passes out the back, but he's actually not really even that good at saving anything. And there's this debate, oh, should we just keep De Gea? Because De Gea would have saved that, right? Even though he's not great with his feet, he would have saved that. And it's like, we don't even need to have these conversations with Vicario. It's like he's playing out from the back and he's making big saves that we need him to. And that Jesus one, for example, I feel like that was a certain goal. And I don't even think Jesus even hit it all that wrong. I think he hit it into the ground. He made it sort of kind of ricochet off the floor, which makes it even harder, I think, for keepers. And Vicario just sticks out like a crack reaction left hand, to it, and just ends up parrying it wide. Even look at some of the saves he made against Man United. They're all just kind of crazy reaction, type saves that even Lloris kind of used to make in his best. That was kind of Lloris's best attribute. So you make those crazy reaction saves out of nowhere. And Vicario, I think, is also doing that. And I'm not seeing that from kind of other quote-unquote modern keepers like the Sanchez's of the world, like the Steeles of the world, like the Onanas of the world. They kind of actually seem to have that error in them when actually you fire a shot in them. They're just good with their feet, but they're not making the world-class saves as much.
I think as well, when we say good with your feet, I think David Raya did show that at the weekend. Good with your feet also means, speed across your goal line to go, and Raya showed that with the Brennan Johnson chance. Like, there are so many attributes now for a keeper, and even sometimes I look at Anana when he comes into like he becomes a centre back or a midfielder, and it's like sometimes is it worth risking that sort of style of play when it is good to be a shot stopper and collecting balls from crosses and just that the basics of goalkeeping. It's sort of hard to really keep have all these different attributes as a goalkeeper and be good at all of them. You look at as we keep saying, the modern standard of goalkeeping seems to be Edison and Alisson. They could play wherever they want on the pitch, but they are good at the basics. They are good at shot stopping. They save so many goals. Yeah, one-on-ones. Their XGs are incredible. Like that Alisson save he did this season where he puts it onto his crossbar. It's just really good, and that's through having a good defense as well, as much as having, we see a lot of goalkeepers, I think that's the problem as well. Modern goalkeeping stats can be a bit misleading because, goalkeepers who face more shots play for lesser teams, like your Bernd Leno's, your Jordan Pickfords, they're facing more shots. So, of course, they're going to make more saves. But, a good keeper in a better team is someone who makes saves in key moments, which Vicario is doing currently.
He is doing that currently, but what's also more impressive is that he's actually facing more shots than Alisson and Ederson are right now. And while you're totally right, most of the keepers that end up leading a lot of the great stats actually end up being kind of more of the bottom, sort of end of the table type of clubs. He's actually with those keepers right now, which sort of shows that Spurs have actually been under pressure and have had chances conceded, but he's done a very good job at just making the saves required to sort of have us keep playing that same style. And I think he's up there with that stat that Jose Sa was leading in that one season, that post-shot expected goal, whatever stat, right? Where it's the amount of goals that you sort of prevented basically from going in. Yeah, I think he's third right now in the entire league, behind, I think, Bernd Leno and Areola. And when I look at Bernd Leno and Areola, those are two guys who I actually think of make consistently a lot of great saves that sort of keep their teams in it. I think Areola as well this season has just made some great saves to keep West Ham in some games. And same thing with Bernd Leno, and the fact that Vicario is up there with those guys, and they're kind of more defensive teams too, right, that invite a lot more pressure, sort of shows that, again, he's sort of doing everything. He's making saves when required, and he's being asked to make a lot more saves than most keepers, inside the top six. And then too, right, he's doing a good job at just still also playing out from the back and trying to lead this sort of kind of modern style of play. He's just doing both things at once here, and this is sort of kind of where I might get to my last point. I feel like Man United, Real Madrid's, all the top clubs in the world, they're looking for these modern keepers that can do both because the position has changed. You are asked to kind of make one-on-one saves now. You are asked to sort of, get outside of your penalty area when needed. You're asked to be more commanding of your penalty area because it also feels like now there's a bit more of a crackdown on being really nice to keepers and giving them those benefit of the doubts. Feels like less of that's sort of happening nowadays too. and you look at it, it feels like they need to be more kind of playmakers out of the back. They need to tell people where to play. They need to point, where people need to stand, where they need to go. They need to be able to ping it long, play it short. Just feels like the goalkeeping position is just far more complex and far more difficult maybe than it actually used to be, and that's why we're seeing these guys going for 70 million, 80 million, 60 million in the keeper department, and Vicario's doing all of these things, yet we've signed him for less than 20 million. And I even would argue some of the things that David Rea, like we brought up in the distribution department, he's good at distribution, but maybe only certain elements of it. And Vicario right now is showing that he's doing the type of distribution we need. He's making the type of saves that we need. Can't really criticize him all that much. I mean, he's had a pretty stellar start to the season, and for somebody who, like all of us kind of, like you brought up, maybe weren't that confident about, maybe didn't even want in the first place, I think he's either proving a lot of us wrong, or he's just shown, I think, that he's the real deal, and probably maybe one of the steals of the transfer window. Everybody says James Madison is for us, but I would say Vicario right now is starting to show to be one of the huge steals of this window. I think he's the real deal.
And I just, one of my final points I want to add is, we talk about different positions in football. Like, say you take a Ivan Toney from Brentford and you go like, this guy will score more goals because he's in a better team with better players. But we're seeing this now with goalkeepers. Like, I even look back to Alisson. I don't think Alisson was the finished article when he was at Roma. Like, didn't they face Liverpool and he conceded 7 over 2 legs? So, and we see with Ramsdale, relegated twice with Bournemouth and Sheffield United respectively, goes into them and looks like a different keeper. Yeah. Many people looked at Vicario and was like, wait, this guy plays for Empoli. Yeah, this guy plays for Empoli, who are not really pulling up trees in Serie A. But you put him in a better team with a bit more of a vision under a better manager and better defender. It makes sense. And we're seeing that. Even when City paid 35 million for Ederson, people were like, what's this all about? Even though he was coming from a club who have produced the likes of Jan Oblak as well, proven keepers. So yeah, it is just, goalkeeping has become this really weird situation in football, because ever since Pep Guardiola brought in Claudio Bravo, then Ederson, it's been like, this is the set standard. And I don't just think it's because of Pep. It's because of, Neuer, people say it's because of the way, Neuer was probably the first keeper to really his touch maps were getting silly and working his way up the pitch at stages. But it is just the way modern football is. We're seeing prices go through the roof. Defenders now have to be more comfortable with their feet. Fullbacks are now more attacking. It's just how football comes around and goes around. And one of the funniest things I've noticed is people say stuff is dying out. It's a bit of a separate point, but old formations, strikers are dying out. But at the moment, we're seeing basically Manchester City play nothing too dissimilar to a 4-4-2 with 2 strikers up top and 4 massive centre-backs playing in all the back 4. So if you're telling me it's definitely, Neil Warnock might as well be leading that team out at some stages.
That'd be great to see that. Yeah, get Dyche in there and see what he could do with that lineup. I completely agree. But everybody, let us know what your thoughts are on this Vicario situation. I think he's proven to be the real deal. Maybe by the end of the season, you might agree with me. Might end up being one of your steals of the season, one of the better signings of this transfer window. I think he's shown to do so many things at once here. Everybody, do head on over to Sunny Talk Spurs, please. You mind giving yourself a little plug if anything's coming up?
Yes, so we've obviously, as Jack will know, we've shot a video going out on my channel previewing the Liverpool game, which was very enjoyable. Bit of talk about Arsenal, bit of talk about Liverpool. Then I got a video on Pochettino, and I've said that I think it was a good decision that we didn't go for him, but that's hindsight. Indeed. And then, loads of good videos going up. I'm really grinding hard, so definitely go over to Sunny Talk Spurs and check all of it out, because it's fantastic content.
Show him some love, Harris Army. Head on over there. You'll be seeing plenty more of him over here, so please check him out. And also hit that like button for us on the way out, and we will be seeing ya. Come on, you Spurs. In the Big Andrew, we trust. We never stop. See you, everybody.